Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. My name is Megan McDonald. I'm one of the student recruitment coordinators here at NSCC, and I'm glad that you could join us today to learn more about the new Practical Nursing Mi'kmaq and Indigenous Offering. This is a new format for our program and really excited to share some information about it with you today. So we today are going to learn all about what the offerings will look like. I'm joined by a staff member who I'll introduce to you in a moment, and there'll be opportunities for you to ask questions and get the information that you're looking for. So I wanted to start things off today with a couple of important acknowledgements. NSCC is located in Mi'kmaq, the unceded territory and traditional homeland of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Our relationship is based on a series of peace and friendship treaties between the Mi'kmaq Nation and the Crown dating back to 1725. As treaty beneficiaries, we recognize that we're all treaty people. The next acknowledgement is the African Nova Scotian recognition. NSCC recognizes that African Nova Scotians are a distinct group who arrived here 400 years ago. From that time on, they've contributed to the infrastructure and economic wealth of the towns and cities they've helped to build, but from which they could not benefit. Let us learn more about how our respective communities were shaped by the historical contributions of African Nova Scotians to Mi'kmaq. So if you right now are watching us live on April 25th, you will be able to interact. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to type them into the question chat box. You're going to have a box just like we have on screen here as part of the GoToWebinar software on your end. Feel free to type those questions in, and we'll make sure that we save some time at the end to go through and answer them. If you do have any questions that don't get answered in the session, or maybe you're watching this as a recording, you're welcome to send us an email. recruitment@nscc.ca is the email address, and I'll make sure to show that again before we sign off today. One other note is that this webinar right now is being recorded and broadcast live. It's April 25th, 2024. But if you're watching a recording of this in the future, know that all of the information we're sharing today is accurate as of this date. But if there have been any updates to the program, I do recommend that you check back on the program page just to see if there are any changes that have been made. And if you do have any questions, email us in recruitment. We're happy to provide you with any details. All right, so before we get into all of our program information, one important thing to note is that Practical Nursing as a program is available at a ton of campuses across the province. But the Mi'kmaq and Indigenous student offering that we're talking about today is specifically based out of the Pictou campus in Stellarton. And the intake we're looking at is September 2025.
Actually, right, September 2024. We start this September. Yeah, I was just like, oh no, it says 25.
No, you're right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Remember, I just said everything was accurate as of April 25th, 2024. We have one flaw here on our slide. So we're looking at the September 2024 intake at the Pictou campus. And Laurel, thank you for chiming in. I think, how about right now you introduce yourself? You were already our fact checker, but also the manager of the School of Health and Human Services. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today, and to those who might be watching the recording session later, thank you for taking the time out to watch the recording. My name is Laurel McIsaac, and I am a manager in the School of Health and Human Services, and Nagana is for Indigenous Cultural Safety and Professional Practice Initiatives within the School of Health and Human Services at NSCC. So for the past year and a half, I've been working very closely with community to develop this cohort of our practical nursing program. And it is the first time that it's being offered, as Megan had mentioned, and we're really excited to be bringing together this cohort for Mi'kmaq and Indigenous students. So I guess I'm really telling much about myself, it's not more of the program. I'll get into here. I kind of like to talk and kind of go along as you did. So my background, for those who might be interested, is I've been in the healthcare for over 25 years. I was a paramedic before I went back to do my nursing, and have nursing for the past 15 years, still do actively nurse in communities and do some travel nursing into Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. And for my active practice, as long as working in the nursing here at NSCC. I've done all kinds of different types of nursing. So I've been in pediatrics, adults, emerge, ICU, community, palliative, light nursing, lots of different options. It's one of the things that I kind of love I loved about the nursing profession is that you can go so many different routes and there's so many different things to choose. We look now, my main focus is on nursing education. And that is still an active practicing nurse. So lots of options for nursing, which we can talk about later if anybody has any questions. This particular cohort, super excited for. So it will start in September 2024. It is a blended flex format, which means you're going to have a combination of courses that are offered online and some in-person classes and skills labs as well. It's going to take 2.5 years to complete, and the courses are spread out throughout over that time. So you will still see in your schedules, once the schedules are available, you'll have some summer break, you'll have your holiday breaks, like over Christmas time, you get your March breaks, all of the holidays that go throughout the year would be recognized for you. The theory classes, the majority of them, they could be synchronous or asynchronous. And what that means is that you may be logging, if it's synchronous, you may be logging in on your computer and participating with a group of people and the faculty person live, kind of like we are today, and you can send us some chats if you want, or asynchronous, which would mean you get to do it at your own pace. There will be, like the skills labs and clinicals are mandatory. They can happen any day of the week. They can be on weekends. So you just got to need to be prepared. And of course, your schedule would be offered to you. If you do decide you would like to apply into the program and you're accepted and offered a seat, then you'll get that schedule so that you can plan ahead. I know that childcare is always a challenge for individuals. So we just want to make sure you have enough time to be able to secure what you need to be successful, which leads me to, I love in the cohort, what's making us so unique is our wraparound supports. So we will have, if you do need to travel, we are based at a Pictou campus, but we will look at the demographics of everybody who ends up being in the cohort and deciding, looking at where's the availability in those campuses for us to meet. If you need to travel, then we will have supports for the travel. So it's not extra burden on you to be able to do that. We're also having elders. We'll have some on the land teachings, cultural teachings, the orientation for the cohort we're actually working on right now and planning and developing. And that'll be an on the land orientation session for everybody who is in the program. So we're really excited about that. The big thing with nursing is there are 4 prerequisite courses that you need to have completed in order to qualify for admission into the program. So that's your grade 12 academic math, English, and 2 sciences. Okay. We have been, which was another unique component of the cohort, over the past academic year, we've been supporting individuals who did not have those cohorts but have already graduated from high school in order to complete the courses that they need to come into the program. And reaching out to you guys today, hoping that there are individuals who will have all 4 of those courses who are interested in the course, who would like to apply to come in. Because we're just in such a tight timeline now where we're starting in September. If you had one course, if you were missing one of those 4, you could probably complete it in the like after you graduate in the summer semester. It would be a condensed, rapid kind of course, but that option would be there for you to do that if you needed to. So just kind of been an overview and kind of have been talking over a lot. So the program is going to it's going to prepare you to be able to work with individuals and have the skills to really make an impact and a change on people's lives, and to be there with them, to support them, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. Okay. The cohort, you're going to learn as a cohort. So you're going to work through your courses together. And there may be smaller groups as you go along, but you'll travel through each course together. There are semesters where there'll only be one course. And then there may be other semesters where you've got 3 or 4 courses. And that's just been in the design of this cohort and looking at our nursing program as a whole. What is the best way to offer courses that really set students up for success? And so we made some tweaking and changes to that, and we are still working through it as we kind of go through. And we'll have a map soon to be able to share. It'll probably be, I'm guessing, late June, July. You'll see that get published, and you would be able to look at it. But yeah, just really, what's the best? Well, how can we best set you up for success? We'll have elders available throughout the program, tutoring. I did talk about the online teaching. Technology, I forgot about the technology. We will have technology offerings and supports for everyone. So if there are individuals without computers or internet access, anything that wherever you are and what your needs are, we are looking to meet them so that it's not feeling like an extra burden to you. We don't want any added stress to people because you think, well, I don't have that, so I can't do that. Absolutely not. We're going to wrap everything around to make sure that you are set up and able to go and graduate to be a nurse and come out and make a difference for people and their families and our communities. So we've really, over the last year and a half, and over the next couple of months, working at what is the curriculum in nursing, and how do what changes can we make so that it is more having a two-eyed seeing approach rather than a strict Western lens to things. We really have been working hard to bring the Indigenous lens into our curriculum so that it's all throughout, and that it's teachings that really are supporting you, but also supporting anybody who wanted to come in and be a nurse. When you are done the program, there's a national registration exam that you have to write. So it's called the Canadian Practical Nurse Registration Exam. And if you successfully complete the program, which everybody will, you're eligible to write that exam. And then you would be eligible to be able to have a nursing license to be able to practice in Nova Scotia with the Nova Scotia College of Nursing. And as you go through the program, towards the end, we start giving support. So we have a course that offers support for that and preparing to write that licensing exam, and what does entry-level practice, what does that look like when you're moving into your practice? The transition from student to practice it's always a challenge. I can still, even though I've been nursing for 15 years, I remember that transition, and it's definitely a scary time when you're making that move from student to a professional.
It's great to hear about all of the supports that are being considered throughout the program and even beyond. So I wanted to add that if anyone is, as Laurel mentioned, maybe you have some of those prerequisites, but maybe there's one course you need that grade 12 biology or whatever it might be for you. And if you're looking for a way to do that this summer, feel free to email us in recruitment. I could send you some links for some options for you to take a look at.
Awesome.
Do you want to share some info about the clinicals, the internship? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's awesome. So we have a number of clinicals throughout. Internship is just another name for a different type of clinical. And they really start to take, what are we learning in the classroom and how do you practice it when we go out? So you'll be in environments like acute care, long-term care. You could be in community. There may be pediatrics and mental health, home care, what am I thinking? Obstetrics, all kinds of different sort of placements. And those shifts, so when we do our clinicals, we want to mimic as closely as we can what it's like in the real world when you're going to be working. So the shifts are days, evenings, nights, weekends, holidays. They can be anywhere from 6 to 12 hours in length. Your start times could vary A lot of nursing shifts start at 7 a.m., but there could be a range in there as well. There may be anywhere from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. for a start time, depending on which area you're in. When we're looking at the placements for you, we do our best to place as close to where you are so that you don't have a lot of travel to do. Some of them will be in groups, and some of them will be like a one-on-one. Your last clinical is a one-on-one preceptorship before you finish the program, and that's a great time to kind of really be in the environment with somebody who, they may become a mentor for you afterwards when you're outside. We also, for the cohort, are setting up, we want to have a minimum of, or we will have a minimum of one clinical placement that will occur in our communities. And if there's opportunities for more, that'd be fantastic. And so we're in lots of work in behind the scenes and making sure we get everything set up for us when we start in September.
Fantastic. I think we often at NSCC talk about how hands-on the learning is, but this is such a good example of it because you're really spending time in the spaces that you'll then later be working as a professional. And if anyone has been able to have a chance to visit an NSCC campus before, to say tour practical nursing facilities, and you're walking through that lab, it's really set up to look like it is a hospital room, right? You've got beds all around. There are mannequins in the spaces that students are working with. So it's always an exciting one to show off on tours whenever I'm taking perspective.
And I love our labs too. When we look at like our mannequins, many of the campuses, I can't say for sure if all, but they set them up. So the mannequins will have names and they'll have different cases and stuff set up with them. So you're really like simulating the work environment for once you graduate.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like there's lots of work going into, of course, prepare folks for the internships, the placements that they're doing, starting with mannequins, of course, before working with, real people, members of the public.
Yeah. Well, that's Laurel, the great thing about the lab. I was just gonna say, that's the great thing about the lab and the mannequins, right? Like it's your opportunity to make all the mistakes in the world. And when we make mistakes, those really are the best learning opportunities because you're really going to remember, oh my gosh, I remember I was in the lab and, I poked an artery, not a vein or whatever. You're trying to start an IV. Those are things that you're going to remember for the rest of your lives, and do impact the care that you provide. And it impacts how you'll share what you know with somebody else who's coming in after you and starting out. It's just great. Yeah,
it's been exciting for me as not someone who's in the nursing profession to be able to go in and see those spaces and see all of the equipment, like you mentioned, placing an IV, these like arms that are used with, a colored water flowing through that students are practicing on. So it's really neat that it's, so physical and hands-on with all of those tools in the classroom too. Because I would imagine that, of course, when you're working with people, you really want to develop those skills before you go out and, start like working with members of the public.
Yeah.
Do you want to share, Laurel, some details about some of the courses that students could expect to take?
Yeah, I'd love to. So this is kind of a list of our courses that are offered in the program. And what we've looked at, I mentioned a little bit before about, sometimes you may only see one course that's offered in a semester, sometimes you may see 3 and 4. And historically, within the nursing profession and nursing education, we know there are some courses that are always harder for everybody. Doesn't matter who you are. And so in developing the cohort and making changes for nursing as a whole, we're taking the opportunity to offer those courses on their own. So your anatomy and physiology, your pharmacology, and administration of medications, those courses will be offered on their own, as well as alterations in the health of adults. So the alterations, you're looking at all of the different diseases and different things that can go wrong, and how do we as nurses help to manage and educate for clients so that they're able to live their best lives. at the end of the day, like the nursing skills, our biggest skill, if I, as a nurse, and I'm being biased, but the biggest skill in my professional honest opinion is our communication. Can we sit with somebody and can we talk to them and can we listen to what is being shared with us? I love it. Like the actual, starting an IV, all those hands-on tasky sort of skills, they're the fun things. And don't get me wrong, I love this. I love those. I've done flight, I've done emergency, I've done ICU. I love all of those really hands-on skills. But I also really love being able to sit with a family or a person and really talk with them and listen to them and learn about them and what their needs are and how to best support them. We see people in nursing that are going through some of the worst experiences of their lives. And we want to make sure within our program that you're comfortable to be able to do that in the end. So communication is also a very important part and is woven throughout all of our courses as we do our assessments with individuals. So health assessment is another really big course as well. Yeah, so this kind of gives you it gives you an idea of what you might be able to expect going through in the 2.5 years.
Great, sounds good. Next, we can touch a bit on the cost of the program. We've got a tuition cost up here for students, which is $3,620 a year currently. You'll see a note on this slide that 2024-2025 tuition costs will be announced shortly. They come out in the spring every year. So if there are any changes, we'll have that stated on our website, but just wanted to share the current tuition number that we have here just to give you an idea of what that could look like for you. There are some additional costs that you'll be able to find on our program page as well. In nursing, for example, there would be the uniform that you get, things like that you'd want to kind of budget and account for as well. But we do have lots of supports available to help fund your education. NSCC has over $3 million that we give out each year in awards to students. And many of those awards are given not only for grades. We certainly have awards that look at grades, but many of those awards are looking at financial need or lived experience, or might be tied to a specific program or campus location. So know that these are opportunities that you can be applying for, and they can be applied for twice a year, every spring and every fall, right up until you graduate. So certainly opportunities to keep your eye out for, and I encourage you all, if you're going to come and be students at NSCC, to absolutely apply for awards, because there are lots of great opportunities here.
Awesome.
Do you want to talk a bit about the application process, because this is also unique to this program too?
Yeah. So when you're applying, and I love this, so you will apply. The link is on the website. You go through. The application fee is waived. Okay, so when you go through the Mi'kmaq Indigenous Nursing within our website, and you can click to apply right away, the fee will be waived on your application. You put all your information in. Okay, you will need to submit transcripts. The registrar reviews that application, and they look at, are you meeting one of the big things is, are you meeting those 4 prereqs for the program? Then they send the list off, and applicants are then sent a link from our Let's Learn Together committee, and it looks at self-identification. And so there's a bit of a declaration that we have you in this form to kind of complete. We want to know if you have a status card, fantastic. Which community are you from? If you know that, you let us know. We ask to share a copy of your card if you have one. And if you don't, and even if you don't, everybody is asked to share, what is your connection to the community? Okay, we really want to know, and how are you rooted in Mi'kma'ki and within the Mi'kmaq culture? And so if you have stories to share, we've had people share stories, we've had videos, we've had pictures, we've had all kinds of different things. We've just had some people just write a few lines to let us know what their connection is. It does not have to be anything elaborate, but but we want that choice to be yours and how you share that with us. If you want to be creative, you can. If you don't, that's okay too. No judgment on how you send it to us. We just really are interested to know, how are you connected? Okay. And then after that is done, so it goes to the committee reviews all of those forms. The names are then sent back to the registrar, and then the registrar would let you know about your admission to the program. You will, students who are admitted, you do have to have a current criminal record check and a vulnerable sector check, as well as a child abuse registry. And so those are things that we can help talk people through in the end. If you know how if you've ever had one done before for any reason, if you've done any volunteering, because sometimes when you do volunteering, you're asked to complete those as well. They need to be within the last 3 months of starting your program. You also need to have your standard first aid and level C CPR, as well as providing proof of immunizations. And so there is a screening form that you can find it on our website, and there's a whole process that you go through. And again, we would support you with that and making sure that it's completed and it gets uploaded into our system to get reviewed, to make sure that, before you go out to clinicals, and this is it's an employer requirement and hence a program requirement, that you're immune to these different viruses and bacteria and diseases.
Often in my role, we have, emailed questions from folks who are asking about the kind of order that all of these requirements need to be fulfilled in. And we often recommend that it's a good idea to start those immunizations now, because sometimes they take a little bit of time. But for things like those record checks, you shouldn't go and get them today. It's important that you apply first, you're accepted, because they do expire. As you mentioned, they may have a few months shelf life in terms of when they relate to the program start. So you don't need to rush out and get those. And the first aid CPR, I've certainly heard about folks doing that, at a provider close to home, or sometimes there are opportunities available on campus. But my understanding, Laurel, is there's usually a date that folks need to have those in by so that they're ready for the placement experience.
And exactly. And we'll look at the cohort as well. If the majority of people need that, then we'll look at making sure we're offering it for the cohort so that you can complete that together as well. The other thing I want to add about the immunizations, when you do get to that point and you're getting that verification, save that form, save that documentation forever and a day. Make sure you put it someplace safe. And call me crazy, I still have mine, because the thing is, if you decide, I was actually the nurse that I changed my career a lot at where I was working many times. Like every couple of years I was taking a new position, because I just, I wanted to try out the different areas and all the different options that there were. But each time you change an employer, they're going to ask for all of this information. And when you have your record from when you did it as a student and you can show it to your employer, they're like, oh, great. And everything kind of just ticks off. You may need to do some blood work just to verify again for something, or have another test done. But it really is like a piece of documentation that you want to keep good track of, which leads me to, we have portfolios that we develop throughout our program. And that is one of the forms that you can add to your portfolio so that you have it to show that you're meeting competencies of the profession. So just wanted to share that as well with everyone.
Laurel, thanks so much for the program overview. Lots of good information there. And I think it's exciting to hear about, what things look like from the student perspective, because it is, a new kind of format for the program. So it's really exciting to hear everything that you have planned. I know that we have some questions that have come through in the chat, so I will read those aloud to you and you can help answer them. So let's see here. The first question is about how many students are expected to be accepted into this particular cohort. Do you have an idea of what the class size will be?
Yeah, fantastic. So we have a maximum of 30 seats in the cohort. So there will be no more than 30 students starting in September. And so, the final number will all depend on the applicants that we receive, and making sure that everybody's been supported if they need prereqs or not, and all of that.
The next question is about the facilities on campus. Sounds like this person may have toured another NSCC location before. Can they expect the kinds of tools, tech in the nursing lab to be reflective of what we see across the board for practical nursing at NSCC?
Yes, so we've worked very hard in our nursing program to ensure that all the there's going to be some variations from campus to campus, but essentially each of the 10 campuses where the practical nursing program is offered, those labs, you're going to see the same things no matter which lab or campus that you're at.
Cool. Next question here is about the technology requirement that you'd mentioned earlier. And I know you'd said that there'd be some supports available. Is that something that folks need to kind of organize once they've been accepted? Would they reach out to you or maybe an advising team? I guess, yeah, some sort of curiosity about how those supports come into play.
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And there's been lots of chat. To ensure that each of the students, because if we have people working from all across the province, which is essentially what's going to happen with the cohort, we could be anywhere from Yarmouth all the way up to North Sydney or, right? We want to make sure that the technology is the same. So what'll happen is each person will be offered, it's a loaner computer, but each person will be offered so that you all have the same computers, you will all have the same technology, so that if we need to support you, then we know exactly what everybody has, and that makes the support a little bit easier, but also easier for the student as well. And then the other thing, working with Center for Teaching and Learning and looking at, are there any programs or anything that we might be able to preload into the computers that would be helpful for you as you're going through. And I know for me, there was a program, Read and Write, that I used when I did my master's degree to kind of, bringing up, and it would have it read information to me. So different options like that as well. So essentially the question is, everybody will have the same computer when you go through, and you don't have to identify. Let us know.
Yeah, that software, I think, note is good to kind of expand on a little bit too, because we've got a really great accessibility services team at NSCC. And so if there are any kind of supports, maybe it's software, maybe it's something else format in which info is delivered, whether or not you have a diagnosed disability or not, this is something that we could look to support before classes begin, so that you can really like hit the ground running and feel supported as you begin classes in September. All right, I've got a question about sort of placement. So can you do your preceptorship anywhere in Canada, or would it need to be in Nova Scotia?
So that's a great question. We have on occasion had individuals complete your final preceptorship in other places, but it's just something that has to be really planned ahead of time to make sure that things are in place, because there's other stuff like making sure that insurances and liabilities and everything are all covered for you wherever the placements occur. The majority would be within Nova Scotia, but if somebody was identifying that they wanted to complete that final placement elsewhere, like maybe you have a job opportunity somewhere else and you'd like to complete there, you can. We would try to support that. The other thing though, just to mention with that, you cannot complete placements if you're already working in a unit. So let's say if you're currently a CCA and you're working in a unit at a hospital, we would not place you there for your clinical placement.
Laurel, do you know off the top of your head how many hours of placement students do? It's a few hundred, I believe.
Oh, it is a few hundred. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. I would say there's close to 600 total in the program. Yeah, but it's not an exact number.
No, but that's great. Lots of experience.
Yeah,
students are getting for sure. Okay, another question about sort of location here. So after you're graduating, are you a certified licensed nurse practitioner? Part one of the question. Part two is, are you able to then work outside of Nova Scotia?
Yes, great question. Okay, so when you graduate, you would have your diploma that certifies you have met competencies that make you eligible to write the Canadian Practical Nurse Registration Examination. once you pass that exam, you can work anywhere in Canada. Okay. And what happens then, there's licensing bodies in each of the different provinces and territories. Once you pass the exam, you apply to whichever province or territory you want to work in, you apply to that province or territory for the license. And then you can work there.
Cool. Yeah, it's nice to know that you can be mobile if you'd like to be.
Yeah.
Is that something that you had to do, Laurel? You were saying that you do sometimes work. Did you say in Nunavut?
Yes. Yep. So I've actually held licenses in Nova Scotia, Ontario, Manitoba, Nunavut, and the Northwest Territories. So I've had 4 licenses.
And are you able to hold all those licenses at the same time?
You can. So each regulatory body holds annual renewals, and you have to show that you are continuous lifelong learning as part of that. So you need to show proof of that. Plus, you have to pay the fees associated with each of the regulatory bodies.
We've got a question about future intakes. Someone who's interested in potentially applying for 2025. Can you share a little bit of info about maybe how things will be forecast, since this is the first intake of this cohort?
Yep. So this is the first intake. I currently do not have confirmed information for an intake beyond the September 2024. We would want to see where it's the first cohort. We would see them go through the program and then look back. Is there anything that we need to change and go along before, and then add another offering? We're really working hard to make sure that everybody who's working on this team and within the cohort, that everybody is Indigenous, Mi'kmaq, or Indigenous. So the faculty who will be teaching you will be Mi'kmaq or Indigenous. And we want to ensure that that carries throughout. So it may, I can't say for sure when the next offering would be, just where it's not confirmed yet. But lots of work is happening.
Yeah, it sounds like something that hopefully can sort of continue on in the future, as with most launches, though, there are, of course, things that you'll want to kind of work on as you're going through. I would recommend for anyone who's keeping an eye on something later in the future beyond 2024, typically when the announcement is made, as soon as it comes out, it goes up on our website. So keep an eye there, and you're always welcome to reach out to us in recruitment in case there's anything that we can share, for sure. Okay, I've got a question from someone who is curious about the working in other communities, so outside of where you're living. Do students need to worry about the accommodation for those times that they're spending time away from home?
Yes. So accommodation, thank you for that question. So your travel and accommodations, if you're needing to do any of that throughout the program, would be supported. So you would not have to worry about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to know. And of course, like more information about how all of that would work would be shared with students once you started the program, but really nice to know that travel, accommodations.
We're kind of getting down into the nitty gritty now, but yes, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think it's so important for, students who are planning, prospective students who are planning to potentially be students to kind of figure those things out. So yeah, I really appreciate all these questions that are coming in. All right. Okay. We've got one more question that has come in. When is the expected graduation date for this intake?
Fantastic. So the expected completion would be June 2027.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, those are all of the questions that we've had come in so far, Laurel. I really appreciate all of the information that you've shared. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we say goodbye today?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming, giving us the opportunity to share the information about the cohort with you. We're really excited to get started. A lot of really great changes happening, and looking forward to starting the cohort in the fall. And hopefully you'll be on board with us.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, we've got one more question that snuck in, so I'm going to ask this one too. So at the Pictou campus, are there, accommodations on site? And yes, Pictou is one of our campuses that has some on-campus housing upcoming, so that's something that you can look forward to, for sure. If there are any availabilities there, we have a housing page on our website, which has information about applying for on-campus housing. And if you do have any questions, reach out to us in recruitment. We can help direct that inquiry for sure. Great, thanks, Laurel. I know housing's important, so I wanted to sneak that one in. It's a big one to think about.
Yeah, that was very important. Great question. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you joining us and for sending in your questions. Laurel, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about the program. The recruitment email address is on screen. Feel free to reach out. If you have any questions that you'd like to be passed on to Laurel, we're happy to send them your way. So yeah, however you'd like to connect, go for it. We want to help you.
Okay, well, all
right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.